Approach?
Yes, the approach is in between macro and micro. It's neither one. Macro would be the whole economy. Micro is how do individuals behave or how do individual firms behave. In between is sectoral analysis and multi-sector modeling, and that's the main approach I take, that there are qualitatively different sectors. Agricultural labor markets, for example, are different from industrial labor markets. Urban labor markets are different from rural labor markets, so on and so forth. And how each of these different labor market sectors operates, and then how they are connected by workers trying to get jobs in the higher paying sectors and in the sectors where jobs are more plentiful and moving if they need to in order to get those jobs. Firms, for their part, moving the opposite direction to where workers are more plentiful. These are the kinds of issues I deal with. Well, I think there are differences, and the differences are primarily by country's level of economic development more than by geographic region. So, for example, if you took a country like Malaysia and you took a country like Mexico, their problems would be pretty similar to each other. The lowest income countries, there's a need to analyze self-employment, to analyze agricultural employment in ways that would just simply not be important in the richer countries of the world. In where you live in Hong Kong, where I live in the United States, we can all but ignore agriculture. That cannot be done in the developing world. There are two insights that I would say are particularly important. The first is not to think in terms of single individuals alone. What might be good for one single person might not be good for everybody taken together. So, for example, if we provide you with more education, you might get a job and somebody else doesn't get that job. If we provide you with more labor market information, you learn where the opening is, you get hired for it, somebody else doesn't. So we need to think beyond the single individual and ask what would create more and better job opportunities. And so that's one thing that policymakers should think about, is about the aggregate. The other is that the answer to problems in one part of the economy may be found elsewhere in the economy. That is, if you take people who, for example, are self-employed and are making a particular product, like hand-rolling cigarettes in India, to take the example of somebody I've lived with, her life is not going to be made appreciably better if by trying to make her more productive at hand-rolling cigarettes. The only way to improve her economic livelihood is to get her out of hand-rolling cigarettes and into something else that she could do. So looking outside of the parts of the labor market where people are working is something else that policymakers should think about in a serious kind of way. Sometimes the answer is found within the sector, sometimes it's not.
Mm-hmm. Do you think?
Let's take two extreme approaches and then take as a positive response what's in between them. One extreme response is to say that the informal sector is indecent, it should be closed down. And if that were to happen, it would deprive literally hundreds of millions of people of livelihoods, and that's no answer. The other one is to say that we only want to have jobs that are formal, that are registered, that are regulated, and if that were to be pushed, then lots of jobs would just simply disappear, and that's not the answer either. So the answer, I think, is to be found by saying that there are a lot of people who are living in economic misery because they work in very bad conditions. And what policymakers should do is to ask the question, how do we achieve economic development of a type that would create more and better earning opportunities for the people whose earning opportunities are now inadequate to provide a decent standard of living? Quality of earnings opportunities, but when you say focus on jobs, some people take that to mean that we should focus only on wage and salaried employment and not on improving people's earning opportunities in self-employment. But since the great majority of people in India who work as self-employed people, they need to be approached in ways that, as long as they remain self-employed, they might become more able to earn a better standard of living while self-employed until more and better wage employment comes up for them.
The outcomes.
There are many, many differences, but I think the main one is to say that what China has succeeded in doing is to be able to penetrate world export markets and thereby create more and better employment opportunities for people in a way that India has not been able to. And so the Chinese model, of course, is taken from the experience of other economies in East Asia that have also succeeded with export-led growth. And India is having trouble getting there for a variety of reasons, some of them political, some of them infrastructural, and some of them it's just a messy place compared to some other places in the world.